Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, amazing people all around the world of crypto and blockchain. And today I promise you, another amazing guest. How do I know? I've done a lot of work with with her company. I've interviewed quite a few of their clients. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce to you Samantha Yap, who is the CEO and founder of Yap Global. Samantha, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Jamil. Very excited to speak with you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to it. So let's kick things off. And you know this question, I ask it to everybody, and I'm going to ask you too. What is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
Yes, so I started my career as a journalist, and I always wanted to be a reporter, actually. I was covering current affairs for a national broadcaster. But now I run a crypto PR firm, and how I fell into it was I got introduced to crypto in around 2017. I got fascinated by what Bitcoin was going to do for the future of money. And then I guess being a journalist, you're always curious and you're always uncovering and reporting a certain, story. So I just kept following the crypto story. And then all of a sudden I found myself helping founders tell their stories. And that's very much what we do at Yap Global. We tell stories, and we like to say we also build trust, because stories build trust. And there's a lot of trust that is needed in this industry because it's new. It's young, fairly, opaque and very noisy. So I think that's what we do as a PR agency.
Awesome. So I only see one element of what you do, right? I only see the podcast part. I don't see everything. So what do you do? What's the whole scope? What's your vision and your mission? What don't I see?
So we are behind the scenes of the communications behind some of the major teams and companies in crypto. We are, you can see ourselves as crypto translators. Behind every founder and behind every organization, there is a comms machine. There is, pretty much a press and a communications machine. We are the agency that supports that. Right? So behind the scenes, what my team does is really every day we're thinking of angles, formulating stories, we're coming up with ideas of how to tell a story, educating people about what they're building. And really behind the scenes, practically, it's a lot of writing, it's a lot of ideating, brainstorming, but then also on the other side communicating it to the media. So my team spend a lot talking to people like yourself, Jamil, and kind of putting you in front of some of key leaders in the industry, so that as you are also telling and giving people a platform to tell their stories, that you're elevating the best ones. And so that's kind of what we do behind the scenes, if that makes sense.
It does. So storytelling, you said storytelling a couple times. So how is storytelling reshaping Web3, and why do Web2 companies that are stuck in Web2 need to do more storytelling?
Yes. So, behind every product or every offering, there's the technical side, there's the practical side, but really what makes everyone's attention spans are limited. We can only consume so much information each day. But what is gonna, when you're scrolling through your newsfeed, when you're scrolling through, whether it be X or LinkedIn or even just, again, your newsfeed, where do you stop? When do you stop? Well, you stop when you see a good story, and people want to hear good stories. People want to be informed, but also want an inside look into a journey, someone's journey, and so that's really why I keep talking about stories, because it's the best way to capture people's attention. And then when you get someone's attention, that's when you can offer your product, your service, and really that's what our clients use us for, because they all have applications that they're building and missions and visions that they want to get more people on board. But really, yeah, to get someone to stop in the middle of their busy days and hear you out, they like to hear a good story.
Got it. So you come from a journalism background, and I'm looking right now as a follow up. I'm looking at every morning my wife has on the TV the ABC morning news, right? And they're giving us, they're not giving us the facts. They're giving us their spin on the facts, and they're calling that news, but a lot of it is only part actual truth, right? How do you distinguish between truth in its entirety, which is what I try to seek on my podcasts, and just a portion of the truth that might not be factual, just to try to slant people's thoughts in a certain way? How do you determine between the two?
It's very interesting that you raise the point and you point to ABC News or whatever outlet. In theory, journalism is meant to act as the fourth estate, right? So you have the legal system, you have the government, and then you have the people, and then actually people those are the elements of a society, and then people talk about how journalism is meant to be the fourth estate. It's supposed to challenge everyone, right? Or so all different factions, and so that's actually what objectively and in theory most media organizations need to do. That, I mean, proper journalism, if we're going to say the ethical journalism should uphold the truth. Now, the truth in this day and age has become subjective, because some people think this is their, one thing is their truth and the other it is, other people don't agree with that. So that's where, for example, you've just brought the example of ABC, and you're like, yeah, but they put their spin on it. But they might not see that they put their spin on it. They might actually think that they are reporting the truth. So then coming back to your question, it's like, how do you know what is the truth? I think first I think what we do as an agency is, firstly, I hold ethical journalism standards to high regard. So we need to follow kind of the standards and the processes that, say, a Reuters reporter or an Associated Press reporter would do to kind of uncover a story. Try to be unbiased, try to uncover the facts. But naturally, as a PR agency, we are going to have a slight agenda, and our agenda is the agenda of our clients, right? Whether you call it agenda, or rather, we actually, as a PR agency, we're pitching to journalists that should be unbiased. But that's kind of how we operate. I don't know if that makes sense. Just to, in short, answer your question, again, it is upholding the real function and purpose of how the media should operate in theory. Now, different media publications, people believe, have different slants, right? Or political viewpoints. But again, this is where truth can be quite subjective, depending who you talk to.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I've written a bunch of books. My first book was called Blockchain Ethics. I was an ICO advisor. I was doing really well. Then I came out with this book, Blockchain Ethics, and everything crashed. No one wanted to talk about ethics and crypto, right? So since then, right, crypto's narrative has shifted. People are talking about ethics now. People are talking about, the importance of the industry's credibility. Where do we still need to go? How has that improved? Where do we still need to go to uphold these ethical standards, not just in journalism altogether, but in Web3?
Yes. I think, first it comes from awareness and understanding. I think now more people know about crypto, and more people tend to, I guess, see that there's value. I think, it kind of stems from where the Bitcoin price is, as well. So people go, okay, this thing is sticking around. Okay, it's worth 100K now. Oh, now it's gone all-time high, 111 or however high it's going. But I think the price is one thing, but it's more like, okay, it's been, how many years? Almost 15, 16 years now. So it's not going away. So I think that first is really like, okay, it's trustworthy. Then you start to see that like banks are adopting it. There's Bitcoin ETFs that have gone live and Ethereum ETFs that have gone live. And so that's, again, builds more trust. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, it's the adoption that builds that trust. And then it's like the awareness of it. Now bringing it back to media and media awareness, Yap Global started at a time when actually Bloomberg didn't really have a crypto reporter. Maybe they had like one or two reporters that were interested, but now they have a full section on their, news site. They have a dedicated team, which I know there are several reporters dedicated to covering crypto. They own the @crypto, ID and X. So, that has grown, and that's just, Bloomberg as an example, but, you're seeing that in other in other news outlets, Financial Times, Wall Street Journal. You're starting to like, you see now today that there are dedicated reporters that have the crypto beat. So that's also positive for our industry, and that's boosted kind of the trust and the credibility for this industry. The fact that there are journalists that are hired and dedicated to covering the crypto beat. So that's where it's heading today.
Got it. So more and more journalists cover the crypto beat. Still, you have people like from the European ECB, the bank, the Bank of International Settlements, leaders in the countries still calling crypto, Web3, Bitcoin a scam, a fraud, or whatever. And while they're secretly pushing their own, stable coins or whatever they're pushing, and a lot of people take their comments in the media at face value. How can people who read the news, who are listening to the news or whatever, who have been taking their comments at face value, begin to challenge some of their comments and do this in a way that they're increasing their ability to think independently? How can they do that?
Well, I mean, I think for the benefit of the awareness of crypto, if you have a comment from someone from the ECB that's quite negative and skeptical about crypto, I mean, in a good news story, they should also have an alternative voice. Now it'll be good to have an alternative voice from the crypto side. It's like, well, to have another voice kind of going, well, that's actually wrong because XYZ. That voice is like elevating more of those voices. And that's kind of one of the things that Yap Global does. We make sure that, if say, Bloomberg were to put in the headline, ECB head says this about crypto, we'll make sure that there's alternative voices offering the other viewpoint in the article. And, that's one of our jobs. So I think challenging it in the same space, same forum, same article, media publication is the best way, and presenting it to the people, the audience, for them to make their own decisions, because they could read that story, hear two sides, and then they make their judgment from there. But I think it's ensuring that you're hearing from the other side is actually what's required.
Yeah. So right now we're not hearing from the other side. So without the absence of that, you're saying people should challenge all the underlying assumptions that they read in the news.
Of course, everyone should. I mean, not everything, not everything that the BBC puts out or is like. I think you have to see that that journalists and the media are, in theory, they're meant to be impartial. They're just here to present the facts. And so you have to see the source. It's like, are the facts presented by, the facts are presented by them, the source is who they quote. So it's like, if you see an article where again, like you said, ECB head says something negative about crypto, that's coming out from the ECB. It's not coming out from Financial Times, right? So you have to know where the sources are and where it's coming from.
Yeah,
That's
I see a
journalism
lot.
101.
I that's good to know. I see a lot of comment. I see a lot of articles that are on Google from Barron's or from Financial Times, maybe Financial Times, somewhere else. That's saying Doge are going to go up, prices of Shiba and Inu is going to go up, but don't buy that. Buy these 10 stocks instead. I'm like, why would you want to buy stock? So you know, um, but there's been different narratives and different stories and different way things are presented in the East versus the West, right? I have a really good audience in the East. I have a good, I have 35% of my audience is US, but 65% of the global. What's the best way to bridge because there's a lot of, I don't say friction, but what's the best way to bridge global voices in Web3 between East and West?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in the crypto industry and Web3, it's quite a global industry, so we gather at global conferences. So I think it's actually quite encouraging to see that you get leaders from the East flying over to the West, for conferences, say in New York, or even like recently there was the Bitcoin conference, so there I'm sure there was like representation of leaders from around the world. So I think going to different gatherings and in cross border. So I know that like second half of the year, a lot of the crypto founders head to Token 2049 in Singapore, and yeah, they interact with the East there. So I really think it's really just yeah, there's this global conference circuit that the Web3 industry gather around, but that kind of is because the industry itself is so global, and again, coming back to the ethos or the mission behind Bitcoin, its focus was to be a peer-to-peer payment system that's not owned by any central authority, and that kind of stems across borders and yeah, across all barriers.
Got it. So the best way. So there still are. I mean, that's one way, the conferences. But as far as the users, as far as global mass adoption, we want to improve visibility globally, right? So what's the best way, or what are some of the best ways to improve that visibility globally for the people who are not familiar with the industry and not going to the circuit? How we can do it so that we can achieve global mass adoption?
Well, I think, are you talking about like communication or like rather, yeah. I mean, social media, right? LinkedIn, X, people spend time on, LinkedIn and then like TikTok. So, I think to reach more users, it's, yeah, looking, I mean, we all spend so much time online. We live such digital lives. People have their mobile phones with them. So I think reaching them through, yeah, people who spend time on X, Instagram, but yeah, TikTok's an interesting one. TikTok kind of reaches a lot of people globally.
I'm not on TikTok.
I know. But LinkedIn, yes.
Yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, yes, definitely. So I wrote a book back in 2018. I remember it's called Regeneration X: how how Gen Xers can use blockchain technology to improve to basically improve our lives and restore ourselves to social prominence, right? I think I got that wrong. I think it shouldn't have been blockchain technology. I think it should have been Web3 ethos. So
Yep.
why is the Web3 ethos very important, more important than the Web2 ethos? How should Web2 companies embrace the Web3 ethos to be able to achieve that and abundance?
Yeah, so there's many things that go into the Web3 ethos, but I think the main one is ownership. So Web3 enables like ownership. So I think with Web2, I always like to point to the example of, yeah, like say Instagram account. The photos that you put on there are actually not yours anymore. They are owned by Meta. And that's, and they do what they want. I mean, they have your account, but they have the right to kind of close it or do, and then they benefit from selling ads to your market. So what's the saying? Like, actually, Instagram's not the product, you're the product. Um, yeah. Um, but then Web3, so I guess a social media platform built on Web3 will enable ownership of your data and your information. And so yeah, just that's how I see the Web3 ethos, and I link it to ownership.
Got it. So ownership is really interesting. So say there was no Web3 right now, and you're a journalist and I'm a content creator, right? We would have to work for a company, in order to get a paycheck, in order to live. We would be able to create our own businesses, right? And they would own our brand, or they would own everything. So what's the role of ownership, and why should everybody, all the content creators, embrace that as an opportunity for the future?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's if it's kind of bringing value to you where value is deserved. So yeah, like for example, an influencer on Instagram, even if they have like say 1 million followers, they might be able to benefit on their end as content creators, but like they're always kind of need like they're leaning on a central organization to uh, for that. Whereas imagine a world where like the value that you're bringing to different platforms, you're also getting rewarded for it. So yeah, like for example, you as a content creator, like you're getting reward. Like I see that you post stuff on your podcast on LinkedIn, and it's a great distribution channel. I'm sure you've got great followers and exposure there, but the truth, like you're not getting fully rewarded because like LinkedIn is also benefiting from it as well. But I imagine if the value mainly went back to you for the content that you're creating and for what you're bringing to um the industry. So yeah.
So I'm posting on LinkedIn. I'm not getting value. I'm posting on X, but I don't have 100,000 viewers. So in those kind of situations, how do you get rewarded when you're posting on other people's platforms? How do you, like, I haven't figured out the way to get
Well,
rewarded.
exactly. But that's why Web3 is like I know then you see different platforms like Socialfy that um yeah that are trying to um yeah build social media on Web3.
Got it. Got it. Socialfy is good. Okay. Yeah, I understand. Um, I got to start posting my podcast there. So, um, so social media, right? Um, there's now a lot in this past year, a lot of AI agents, right? Everybody's using AI. It's the age of AI. I think it's probably the cycle in AI that's going to stay. Um, and so there's a lot of there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of confusion. How do we filter the signal from the noise in that communication on social media?
So you're talking about AI agents, or are you talking about filtering the signal of noise?
I guess both. I guess I combine them two in my head. Like one's caused the other, but maybe they're separate. So let's talk about both.
Yeah, so I think that's so as a founder of a PR firm, we 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 deal a lot with the media, and we deal a lot with there's only a handful of media publications really. There's only one Fortune and one CoinDesk or one Bloomberg, right? And so actually when it comes to filtering, we the media filters. right? Because with content on X, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, like the number of content is unlimited, right? Like every day, every minute, every second, someone's tweeting something. So, projects can send 1,000 tweets a week if they want to, right? So actually, it's quite noisy on social media. So how do you analyze what really is, making it a trend, and what is the top narrative of the month or the season or the year? And so I do think that you find that in media. There's also other social media listening and tracking sites, and you probably heard of Kaito AI. They're quite good at analyzing the mind share. They've kind of like brought that term to light, mind share. I think there's also a platform called Cookie that does that as well. But again, it does still feel noisy, even on those platforms. So I actually think the filtering tool is still the newspapers and the online media, as much as people, may criticize it for being biased or uninformative. I mean, because if you think about it, Bloomberg can only publish, 2 to 3 stories a day on crypto. So whatever makes the top story that day or that week, that's how you note a trend, or note what's important and what's the signal rather than just noise.
Got it. I still think back to the couple of years ago. I was on X, and there was an influencer, and he made a 2-sentence post, and then I looked at it. Within the first minute, he had 2,000 likes. Within 10 minutes, he had 10,000 likes. To me, that's inauthentic. It's inauthentic. So how do you like? You think somebody has a big following, and he might not at all. It might be all bot. How do you distinguish that if you're not directly looking at it to see what happened in that moment? How do you know?
Well, I mean, platforms like Kaito AI help track like smart following. So it's, credible people follow them, and then therefore that builds the credibility because nowadays, followers can be bought. What I like to do as well is I just kind of like see if there's people that I follow them, then okay, that builds credibility. But if I see that like not many people I follow them, then that's a red flag for me. So you kind of can see, okay, the people you follow, do they follow them? That's how you gauge credibility on X.
Got it. So you're looking at you're not just looking at numbers. You're looking at people. You're looking at relationships.
Yeah, and then I think that also applies in LinkedIn, right? Like if you got so when you get an invitation to connect with someone, and then you have a bunch of mutual connections, you're like, okay, like this person is someone that is probably in the industry. But you have if someone tries to reach out to you and you have like no mutual connections or like one, that's when I would start to like question, okay, who is this person?
Yeah, I'll let you in on the secret. On LinkedIn, I have a mute category for my inbox. If somebody connects with me and they start to pitch right away, I hit mute. They keep pitching, but I never see it because I have them on mute.
Yeah.
So I categorize them that way. But
Yeah. Well, it depends, right? Because if you get a pitch, it also depends who you get a pitch from. Like if it's someone, that has more connection, like more mutual connections, then you might, obviously pay attention. But if they're kind of, come out of like randomly, then maybe you're going to be like, okay, I don't know how credible or trustworthy this source is.
Yeah, the trust is always important, right? So, so say I start a Web3 project, or I create my own blockchain or a meme coin or whatever, and I want the word to get out there globally. I come to you. What can I expect? What services could I rely upon you for, to help me as a founder, as a newcomer, as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So again, we are a PR agency, so and we focus on communication. So when we first work with projects, we'll start by doing kind of a workshop, like a media positioning workshop. We'll kind of you know ask you a bunch of questions to see how, like, to understand why you started what you started, where you want to go, where you want to head. Then what we'll do is we'll craft advice on the story or the angle and the approach you should take. And so that's kind of what we do in our workshop. And also, like, what your key messages should be about. And then we'll then proactively, pitch, work on any announcements, work on any relationship building that needs to happen. Again, a lot of our focus is on media relations, because you can't expect, say, Bloomberg to write about you overnight. You'd have to build relationships. It's about getting those, background chats, bringing value to the reporter. Because if you think about it, reporters are getting pinged like more than 100 times a day, right? Like there's way more projects, way more additional marketing agencies than journalists. So their attention is actually valuable. But what we specialize in is how do you ensure that you get their attention in the first place? Now, we pride ourselves in making sure that we represent the best in the industry, that we're actually bringing a good story. It's not about just pushing our client's agenda. It has to be a good story, and it has to be a story of value. And so we, again, as I said, we spend our days brainstorming, crafting, really just wordsmithing on angles and press releases, so that it becomes an appealing story and that it will get picked up by the media.
Sounds really good. Awesome. So I want to thank you very much for your time today. I have one last question, which I just asked it, but I said, how can people find out more information about you, become clients? How can they find out about Yap Global? How can they use you guys? Going forward, how can they do that?
Yeah, thank you. So you can pop over to our website, yapglobal.com. We have a contact form there as well, so you can kind of fill out a questionnaire if you're interested in PR services. On X, we are Yap Global Team, and my personal X is Samantha W. Yap. The W stands for my middle name, Wei Ling. But yeah, Samantha W. Yap on X. And yeah, it was a pleasure speaking with you, Jamil. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.